The Charlotte Hornets are going to have a new general manager after Mitch Kupchak and the Hornets announced that he is stepping down from his lead post running the basketball operations of Michael Jordan's former team, now being owned and operated by a joint partnership of Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin, two former minority owners of the Atlanta Hawks. And this was something that, the whole league was prepared for. I believe at the time of his new deal at Bleacher Report, I wrote that Kupchak's deal was known around front office circles to be a 2-year contract with like many year options after the first two to be a senior advisor in quotes, which who knows what exactly that will entail, that I think is the case. And anytime teams mutually agree to part ways, and like Dwayne Casey's just hanging out in the Pistons front office right now.
We should ask Dwayne what that means when you get kicked upstairs. What do you actually do?
Yeah, I do know Alvin Gentry, after being mutually agreed to going into the front office in Sacramento, is living kind of a sweet advanced pro scout life, just flying around the country, telling stories, logging player personnel intel. So maybe there will be opportunity for Mitch Kupchak to be just like one of the boys in the front office, but I don't know. Not too many septuagenarian pro scouts these days. Shout out. Is it Billy Burka is the guy's name in the Lakers?
Yep.
So what I wanted to just highlight is that there are going to be a ton of names that do come out for this job. A lot of them, I just want to issue a public service warning to the NBA slop fans out there. A lot of the names you're going to hear are going to be names that either Charlotte wants to be involved or people who want themselves to be involved that aren't going to be involved. So the first batch that came out on ESPN's reporting, as Keith Pompey at the Inquirer already stated, and I had been told that a little while ago, but shout out to Keith because I did not bring the information to the people, that Elton Brand, the general manager in Philly, number 2 behind the president, Daryl Morey, has no interest in that position. Although I do believe he's someone that definitely is on the radar in Charlotte. And he has been, he was on the radar in Minnesota before they ended up with Tim Connolly. So that's just one example so far of the early batch of names where it does seem like Trajan Langdon and Jeff Peterson are two names that have been in the rumor mill about this exact position for a long time, pretty much ever since the ownership changeover took place, where Trajan is the GM of the New Orleans Pelicans, the number 2 there. He left there from being the number 2 in Brooklyn under Sean Marks, but to a GM title. Jeff Peterson is an assistant general manager in Brooklyn. Two very, very highly regarded guys. Trajan played at Duke, has other ties to the organization, was a finalist for the Wizards job that went to Michael Winger. Those two guys, as well as the Cleveland Cavaliers general manager Mike Gansey, all prominent names in our Next GM's article that ran at Yahoo Sports at the end of last summer. So if you guys want more idea of who these next if you're really interested, if you're a real sicko and care about who's going to be the next up and coming front office leaders around the NBA coming to an organization near you, check out that article. And it's going to be interesting to see who they do hire, but to me also when it happens, because it does sound like the goal is to get someone in here before the season's over and kind of really hit the ground running. And that will be, I think, an advantage that Charlotte has over several other teams that are going to have changes, because that just is how the NBA works. There are going to be changes. But this year in particular, it feels, and not to be the Grim Reaper over cushy NBA jobs, but it does seem like there's plenty of teams that have lofty expectations this season, and only 8 of them can get to the second round. So there's a lot of potential for hurt feelings and sour grapes and sour tastes in one's mouths as they walk off the hardwood of some arena to cheers or boos or whatever, to all of a sudden we have a Mike Budenholzer Milwaukee situation. So I think that's just something to keep in mind as we move forward throughout the rest of this NBA campaign. Once we come back from All-Star, once we get back into the NBA world.
Yeah. Based on how that all shakes out in the postseason, it'll be interesting to see how attractive a job Charlotte winds up looking like. Obviously has been something of an NBA backwater since the Hornets came back during Kupchak's tenure. 178 and 260 in 6+ seasons. Only made the playoffs once. Only got over 500 once. And even that was they didn't even make the playoffs. They were the 10th seed and they got drilled by the Hawks in the play-in. So there's not been a significant track record of success there. There was always some question as to how much Kupchak was how much he was running his own show and how much that was executing the vision of ownership. I guess those things don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive, but are you picking the guy that you think is the best, that gives you the best chance to set up the future? Or is it the best player of all time comes in and says, you're drafting that guy? Because I remember watching him during March Madness. It's hard to tell, and all these
plenty
things
of stories to Dan's, plenty of stories. Who knows what they're about? MJ coming in week of the draft and kind of changing up, dating back to the Rich Show era. So
yeah, so that's been going on, and there's all these sliding door sort of moments. 2018 is Kupchak's first draft, and they have the number 11 pick, and they choose Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the number 11 pick, and then they flip that pick to the Clippers at number 13 for Miles Bridges, and who knows? There's a million versions of that kind of story, and if you take this guy but not that guy, maybe everything shakes out differently. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe organizations are going to rise or fall based on lots of other things too. But whoever comes in now, you come in with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, a few extra picks from the moving and shaking they were able to set up at this last deadline, and potentially some financial flexibility in a couple of years from now. So obviously there's going to be a lot of furniture moving around in there, but I think there's the outline of an attractive job there, but they might get jumped in the line by whatever winds up happening in the playoffs. So yeah, TBD.
I don't know. I started talking to people about this back around trade deadline times. I think Charlotte might be a more intriguing job than the Wizards job that Michael Winger and co. just took over. It sounds like they have a decade of runway there, and there's no real expectation to be competitive anytime soon with the Wizards. So from a job security standpoint, staying power standpoint, who knows if that's going to end up being the real beneficial position compared to Charlotte. But the starting point of LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, the fact that they recruit some draft capital at this deadline, and I was asking this before the Wizards somehow managed a first-round pick from Dallas for Daniel Gafford, which is a whole nother conversation. The Hornets got a first for PJ from Dallas as well. They got first Terry Rozier. They got 2 firsts for Gordon Hayward. And I think there's plenty of expectation and noise about new practice facility, new arena, very competitive owners who have kind of been breeding themselves by all accounts to do this. It's just I think and Charlotte has always been kind of talked about as a market that could be boosted. It's a pretty nice city with a lot of business coming in and out and lovely weather. So I don't know. I personally am bullish on that situation. I'm basically making a public campaign for Rick Chenault to consider me for GM at this point. So let's move on.